Hi, welcome to the Brooklands BMTV channel. My name is John Bottomley and I'm recording some of Brooklands heritage through the eyes of sons and acquaintances of the people who raced at the track. Hopefully some of you will have already watched the two films we recently put together on the life of G.D. Brown and his works Douglas through the eyes of his son Malcolm. Interestingly enough, a couple of weeks after the release of the film, I had a phone call from a voice from the past, Peter Wells, who had watched both the films, and I've known Peter for some time as he was one of the early members of the motorcycle team way back in the day when we started. The call was to let me know that he had worked for G.D. Brown, and this sort of threw me a little bit because I hadn't realised of the link. And so he said he was quite happy to come along and share some of his memories. So here on this beautiful sunny Thursday afternoon, I have Peter Wells with me. And we will hopefully add another chapter to the G.D. Brown story. Peter, thanks for the call. You were certainly a voice from the past, and it was lovely to hear from you. And I didn't realise that you'd had contact with G.D. Brown. Also, thanks for coming to share your memories of G.D. Brown, and we have here his sidecar and the race bike, which I gather again you've had a lot of interest in.
Great memories.
But before we talk about G.D. Brown, let's talk a little bit about you.
Yep.
So
carry on. What do you want to know?
You are a local, I gather?
Yep. I lived in and around Farncombe, well, for the last 60, 70 years, I suppose. 80 years, actually, now I can't think of it.
Okay. And your interest in motorcycles, it dates back to?
Well, I suppose it really started when my father, who had the local pub in Farncombe, wanted to buy my mother and myself a new bicycle. The war had just finished, 1946. Went down to the local cycle dealer, who in fact was G.D. Brown, motorcycle extraordinaire and bicycle salesman as well. We met G.D. Brown, bought a couple of bicycles, and I think from that day onwards I decided I would like to have something to do with motorbikes. My father had a very aged, I think it was a Norman, yes, it was a Norman auto cycle, which he used to go down from the pub to the bank to put our old cotton gains in and back again each day. And I used to ride it when he wasn't looking, obviously. And I thought, well, I would like to, the way into motorcycles is to go and work for a motorcycle dealer. So I said to the old man, can we go down and see G.D. Brown and see if I could get a job? So we went down to see G.D. Brown, and sure enough, he was very kind, very understanding that a young man who was interested in motorbikes wanted to work in a motorcycle shop. Offered me a job, 10 bob for all day Saturday, because I was 13 years of age and obviously at school in those days, but 10 bob was a fortune in those days. Is that all right? Yeah.
You didn't declare that to the taxman, did you?
Oh, I did. My father did. No, actually, that was good. Anyway, I started off, I think I swept the floor of the showroom, polished...
Can I just stop you there? We'll come back on to G.D. Brown.
Carry on.
You've got excited into motorcycles. So what was your first motorcycle?
My first legitimate motorcycle was a 350 XWD matchless, which I've got a picture of somewhere, which one of these days I'll show you for a good lad. And I had a lot of fun with that. I got it when I was age 30. In fact, I bought it, or I was able to buy it, when I was working for G.D. Brown at the age of 13. We couldn't ride it officially on the road, but there was a very, very accommodating farmer down the road, whose name I think was, oh God, I've forgotten, Gander, that's right, Mr. Gander, who I also worked for on a part-time basis on the odd occasion. And he said we could use part of his road, which is an old arterial road, which the Canadians built during the war. And I used to ride this motorbike up and down there. There's a photograph somewhere of me on it, and also that's when I met Malcolm Brown, who is G.D. Brown's son, because he had a very aged Triumph, which I think his father had taken in part exchange. Okay. And we rode that, apart from on the arterial road, in his grandfather's garden in Bottomley.
So this got you into motorcycling?
Oh yeah.
And So when did you would do national service?
Yep, 1952 to 1954, never to be forgotten.
Right. and was motorcycling part of your national service or not?
Yeah, I started off as a surveyor, supposed to be a surveyor for the, because I was in an artillery unit. But some reason or another, somebody wanted a dispatch rider, or the CO said we need a dispatch rider. And I volunteered, and I got the job, riding a G3L matchless, absolutely fantastic, all over Germany as it happened. And while we were out there, two or three of us formed a sort of what we thought were going to be a motorcycle club. And we used to go out and organise trials all over the place. We had a great time out there. Well, until one of the bikes caught fire, we were having a really good time out there, but the CO found out about the motorbike catching fire and said that is the end of all trials.
Okay, so that put a stop to your army. But when you came out of the army, then
oh yeah,
that was. So what was your first real bike then?
Well, when I was on leave from Germany, actually, I bought a 500T. 500T Norton from Comerford's, I think it was, at Dempston. Big dealers down there in those days. Great bike, had loads and loads of fun on it. Fell off it more times, I think, than I rode it successfully. Rode in a load of trials. Eventually decided 2 strokes of the way forward and bought myself, believe it or not, a Norman 197, 70 Villiers engine.
Okay,
fabulous.
So in fact I've seen a photograph of that, so of your Norman. And I think you rode that in local trials, Talmag and things like that?
Yeah, all sorts of things, Half Crown trial, all Archer Trophy, all the local trials, yeah, a great deal of fun. And once or twice the Southern, which was far too much for me actually, but I did enjoy it. And I think I was overtaken several times at the same trial by one Sammy Miller, riding his aerial GOV 132 or whatever it was. Yes. And yeah, I decided then I would never take up scrambling if that's what it meant, going at that speed. No, trials was good enough for me, and I enjoyed it, I have to say. And I carried on trials riding until I met my wife, I suppose, or the young lady who was later my wife, obviously.
Right.
But apart from that, that was my motorcycling. Apart from the fact I did buy, funnily enough, a 350 Douglas. Now, I don't know if you remember the 80 plus.
Yes.
80 plus, guaranteed to do 80 miles an hour. Well, it almost did until we got almost down to Brighton with a pop seal on the back and the damn thing seized up. So that was the end of my Douglas.
Did you take it back to GD Brown?
No, I didn't take it up. But funnily enough, somebody in Brighton rescued it for me and put it back in one piece. But by this time, the call of the matrimony had arrived, and I got married, and those were my motorcycling days over, I think.
Right.
Until I came and met you at Brooklands and became a volunteer many years later.
Yes. Well, we've actually got a couple of photographs of you at our 2007 motorcycle day.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
you dug those out, have you?
We've got you there. And I forget now the machine, but I do know that you had a ride on Roger Bird's.
Roger Bird's Norton International,
yeah.
XDSJ, yes.
Yeah, so
Dennis Jenkinson's machine, yeah.
It's Dennis Jenkinson's old bike. So.
That's right. I did nearly 20 miles an hour on that thing. Got a hair raising, yeah.
Well, I'm pleased you were only doing that because you didn't have a safety helmet.
No, I certainly didn't.
Helmet on, so, and that is verboten here. You have to wear your.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's some background of yourself. Now let's go back to JD Brown. So your father got you a Saturday job, if you can like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that must have been both good from a remuneration point of view, and
10 bob came in handy. Yeah.
Learn a little bit about motorbikes.
Absolutely. I think the one thing that sticks in my mind more than anything working for GD Brown was on my Saturdays we used to go in this machine here from GD Brown's premises in Mead Road, Godalming, all the way to Guildford railway station and pick up a new Douglas. I think it was a T350 in those days. I think they've been introduced about 1946. And I used to sit in the front of that thing, or kneel at the front of that, hanging on for grim death, while GD Brown, with no sort of safety, no crash helmet, no goggles, just a pair of grey flannels and a hacking jacket, whatever the weather, didn't seem to affect him at all. rode at, I would think something like 60 miles an hour across Priesmarsh. I was terrified. I sat at the front gritting my teeth, but when we got to Guildford station, we got the Douglas in here, which left me very little room at the front. I had to sit with my back to the front, if you see what I mean,
Yeah.
holding the front wheel of a Douglas 350 in case it decided to go off by itself. And the trip back to Godalming was even more terrifying than the trip out there, because not only was I in the sidecar facing backwards, but I was also hanging on to this damn Douglas as well. Terrifying. But I had great faith in his ability as a driver, and he was such a nice bloke. I mean, he really was. He took us to, I remember one particular time, I stayed round at their house actually. I knew them quite well because I knew his son. By this time we were great chums. And he decided he would take us to Blandford road races, which we did. Pouring wet day, absolutely bucketing down. He would insist upon keeping the front window open on the driver's side, because otherwise the damn thing steamed up. Went all the way to Blandford, hell of a long way, freezing cold, got there, watched the racing, came back, it was still raining. A memorable day. But on the other hand, he did also take us to Wimbledon Speedway. Several occasions, great stuff. Thoroughly enjoyed it. He was a very good employer.
He never rode after Brooklands, I don't think, did he?
Only on demonstrations. I think I came to Brooklands years later with my wife and my kids then, and I saw him doing a run-up on the runway, presumably it was this bike, the old Dougie here.
On the Dougie, yeah.
Yeah. Which is now ridden by Malcolm occasionally, hence your real film of a few weeks ago, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Yeah. Great stuff.
Did you know GD's father?
Old Man Brown? Yeah, he was a JP. He had a ruddy great house at the top of Lanaway Road, and we in fact dug out a few holes out there. We built a trials course in his back garden. But once again, a memorable part about G.D. Brown's father, who I think was aged about 90. I went in one day and I said, "How's the family?" He said, "We're all okay apart from Grandad." I said, "What's happened to him?" He said he fell out of an apple tree. Now, he was scrumping apples of his own orchard at the age of 90. I think he spent the next few days in the Guildford, whatever it was, the General Hospital there. But he survived. He was a grand old gentleman. Never complained about us digging holes in the garden, which was fortunate, because if you knew some of the other things we did in the back garden with a few of the dolly birds we had in those days. Popses, I think we called them in those days. Anyway, lots of fun, good memories, happy memories.
So what else other than going, because back in those days new bikes were delivered by in crates and by train, weren't they?
Well, they were delivered by train. They didn't have any packaging on them when we picked them up from Guildford. They were just as they were, naked. As I say, a small boy hanging onto the front wheel when we were hurtling back over Peasmarsh. But they were then taken off, polished and stuck in the showroom. But I mean, I think G.D. Brown got about one every 3 or 4 weeks. That was all. So I mean, the whole thing, that everything was sold before it literally touched the showroom floor in those days.
And this would be like the late 40s and early 50s?
46, 47, 48, yeah, when I was with...
And was he only a Douglas agent, or did he...
As far as I know, only Douglas for motorcycles, but he had various bicycle agencies, BSA, Norman, one or two
Push bikes,
Push bikes, sorry, yeah,
okay.
I beg your pardon. Yeah, no, he was... No, it was only Douglas. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute, Harpatech, sorry, no. You'll have to excuse my brain, sorry, John.
It's okay.
No, he was an agent for BSA, wasn't he? 250 C10s, C11s, little, it was a super little bike. Yeah, 250s, that's right. We never had a 350 in there, but we all had the 250s.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so, it was a C10 and a C11, sorry.
So you sort of learnt the skill, the art of riding a motorbike and falling off it and everything with the army and everything.
Oh, absolutely.
So what about, how did you learn about, because I'm always interested in those days, there was no books on things and whatever. How did you learn about motorbikes, taking the bits, keeping them going?
There were books on, yeah. A chap called Ixion, I think, wrote for the motorcycle. He wrote books on how to get the most out of your motorcycle and how to make it go further on a gallon of pool petrol in those days. I think petrol in those days was about 1 and 9p a gallon.
Yes. Old money.
Old money, yeah, proper money, yeah. Before we went metric and all those sort of sloppy things.
So did JD do maintenance?
GD.
GD, sorry.
Yeah, you get it right,
yes,
John.
sorry,
Now, come on, you're taking it.
So did he do maintenance on bikes and
Oh yeah,
service them?
well, with his mechanic, Charlie. Now I tell you about Charlie.
No,
he was
Charlie.
his passenger in a sidecar at Brooklyn before the war. They had these very, very low, looked like it was like a slipper sidecar. The sidecar passenger didn't do any leaning out or anything because there are no corners of Brooklands anyway. So they just shoved him in, stuck a mattress or a pillow behind his head so he didn't fall out again, and belted around Brooklands at high speed. Now Charlie was his mechanic. He survived all this sidecar rubbish going around at 90 miles an hour around Brooklands on odd occasions. And as a mechanic, I always thought he had a loose tooth when I first met him, but it turned out he was never without a cigarette dog end in his mouth. And I used to hold whatever it was he wanted me to hold, or push that, or help him with a tyre, but the cigarette never left his mouth. He was a lovely old man. He knew all about motorbikes, knew everything. Taught me how to put a tyre on it, which took me about 2 hours. We'd do it in about 20 minutes. Putting tyres on wheels. He did all sorts of timing. He was an absolutely brilliant old man. Tiny little fellow, always in the same pair of overalls as far as I could see. I don't think he ever took them out to sleep. You know,
he was sort of born with them on and kept them on.
I thought he born and died. He died.
Yes.
Yeah, he was the original greasy man. He really was. Yeah. But a lovely bloke and very knowledgeable. So yeah, and I helped him, but I didn't actually serve an apprenticeship with him. But I learned a little bit. I still don't know very much about motorbikes, but I do still enjoy them. I can't ride them anymore, but I love talking about them, and obviously that's why I'm here today.
Right.
And that's why I was here when you took the photograph on the old Sloper. And that, did you know that was, sorry, on the Norton. The Sloper, you do know Steve Clark?
Yes.
Yeah, well, Steve Clark had a thing called a BSA Sloper, which for some reason or other got me to ride. And there's a picture of me going up Test Hill years and years ago that appeared somewhere. And he was such a nice man, always wanted me to ride this thing. And I've ridden round Brooklands up the hill dozens of times, but it's now sold, all part of the history of Brooklands and Steve Clark, of course. I don't think he's got a motorbike anymore.
No, I think
he's got a very aged MG, mind you, he was talking about the other day.
Yeah, we better not talk about that.
Better not talk about that.
No. This is only motorcycle.
Don't mention the MG. No.
This is motorcycle speak. Not,
yeah, okay.
Yeah. So what else with working with JD? So every Saturday.
GD. Now let's get this right, John. For heaven's sake, GD. Graeme. You know how to spell Graeme, did you?
G-R-A-E-M.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
not the other Graeme,
not the H-A-M. Yeah,
and
that's
all that
right.
sort of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'm only half educated joker, but you know.
You know, you needn't explain it to me, John. I've guessed.
So what else then? You used to collect parts and bits. Any more funny stories or interesting anecdotes about GD?
Oh, no, apart from helping him in his garden. I used to help him with his garden, and then actually I do remember one thing. G.D. Brown, his dear lady wife, had I think they probably had the first television in Surrey. It was certainly the first television in Godalming. And we used to go around and watch this. The only thing I can ever remember seeing on television in those days was Cafe Continental. And they opened their doors, the Browns, to their neighbours, because nobody else had got a television. And I remember one evening, winter's evening, we were all sitting there watching Cafe Continental. And I sniffed like that, and I could smell burning. And we looked around, and it was their Dachshund dog lying in front of the fire, and it actually had singed, and it was actually burning at the front there. Anyway, Mrs. Brown, I don't think she threw a bucket of water over him, but she probably took him out the back and hosed him down pretty quickly. Anyway, the dog came back looking a bit damp and sat straight back in front of the fire, but there was no more hair to burn, so he was quite safe after that.
So if you're going back again to GD,
GD, yeah, you got it right now,
I got it
John.
right
Well
now,
done,
yeah. I do get there eventually, you know.
Even a Yorkshireman can be educated, you see, despite what they think.
Yes, absolutely. It must have been a meeting place of the like-minded people, was it or not? Or
What, the
the
GDs?
garage? Yeah, the garage.
Yes, people. He had a one particular customer. I think his name was Penny, who raced an Excelsior Manxman 250,
Right.
and dear old Charlie, complete with dog end, used to fettle that and put new tyres on it, ready for racing. And he was one of the customers. And there was another fellow, I can't remember, who raced, bought a new Douglas Plus 90 Plus, and raced it in the Isle of Man. Now I cannot for the life of me think of his name, but that was a very, very happy G.D. Brown customer, among the many.
Because he was president of the Whitley Motor Club.
Oh, the Whitley Motorcycle Club at Guildford, yes, that's right. Yeah, well now, they started I think they were one of the first clubs to initiate the RAC-ACU trading scheme.
Yeah.
And we used to turn up probably on a Saturday morning now, or maybe, no, I think it was a Sunday morning, Laundry Road at Guildford, among the gasometers there, because Whitley had their club house down the back there as well. And we rode, I think the chap called Charlie Wake, who was a bigwig of the Whitley Club, he had a 500 matchless or something, and all us learners got on it and rode this 500 thing out. But no headgear, no goggles, no night, up and down Laundry Road, until we either fell off or he decided he wanted his motorcycle back. So that was good fun. But G.D. Brown was the president of the club in those days, and Charlie Waite was one of the big wigs. And I can't. Did we say Reg May?
Yeah,
Reg May. Would that ring a bell with you, Reg May?
Yeah.
I think he was something there as well, because they used to hold. William District used to have their own grass trap meeting at a place called Woolgarth Farm in West Horsley, and we used to troop over. I remember Malcolm and I used to cycle over, because Dad was always over there, but his father was G.D. Brown was always over there first. We used to cycle over and watch the racing there. It was great fun, and yeah, that was another string to Whitley's bow.
Because Reg May was, I think, secretary and treasurer of
You're probably right.
Whitley, yeah, because
I
I joined Whitley in '82, so when we came
right,
to
you
live
are
here.
young, aren't you?
I am a young lad, yeah.
Yeah, despite the odd grey hair.
And I can't get GD right either.
You can't get GD. Well, you've always got it now, don't worry, John. Yeah, you're there.
With your tuition, I'm getting there slowly.
You're there, dear boy. Yeah, no trouble.
That's true, yeah. And so you were quite friendly with Malcolm then, and they.
Oh, Malcolm and I, yeah. Well, we rode. I don't know if I've ever told anybody else. I think we rode ponies together with a girl down there called Peggy Taylor, who was a beautiful girl, and she had this little riding stable in Godalming. No, in Farnham actually. And we both rode ponies down there, and we got to know each other fairly well, apart from cycling and ponies, and our joint love of motorbikes, of course. And we were jolly good chums after that. In fact, I think Malcolm, I'm right in saying, is probably my oldest living chum. Every time I talk to him on the phone, he says, "Hello, Peter, you're still above ground then." It's a lovely opening gambit, I think, but yeah, I am at the moment.
I should have had Malcolm come today as well, but
I wish you had, actually. I'd love to see him.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've been that busy. I haven't had time to. And
I'm
needed
sure
to get this in
guy.
before the end of June, so I've been pressured. So I'm going to ring Malcolm and apologise for not.
Yeah, well, apologise to me if I've said anything out of order, won't you?
We'll let him vet it before.
Yeah, I think you better actually.
Yeah.
Just
so
in
riding horses. Do you see a link? Because we have. One of our team now who was a good horseman in the police, actually.
Well, I think anything that gives you control of anything that's basically out of control is a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, you never master a horse completely, and I could never master a motorbike completely, but just sitting on the top gives you an idea. I think it gives you a false impression of power. You sit on a horse and you sit on a motorbike, you think you're in control.
Yeah.
Some of the time you even are. Most of the time you're not, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's...
especially true with horses.
Yes.
Because I had a lot of horses in my life. But yeah, so yes, I think there is definitely an affinity between the two.
Okay.
John.
Okay. Well, Peter, I don't think there's anything better than sitting on a bench in Brooklands with somebody like yourself with a beautiful piece of equipment here, enjoying the great weather and listening to your reminiscences, and a huge thank you and I'm sure that hopefully we can do it again with the motorcycle show on the 4th of July.
Right, and we'll have a pint in our hands then.
Yeah,
Is that
maybe,
right?
yes, that's true.
We do that. John,
Yeah.
it's a great pleasure to
It's
come
been a
along.
pleasure.
My God, I'm an old man. Would you mind? Good God. What a grip these Yorkshiremen have.
I'm just after grabbing your
I
fingers,
wouldn't I
you
try
know.
and get a pint off you? Oh dear, oh dear. Oh, great. John, thanks. Is it all over now?
Yeah.
Oh.